Today we're looking at the latest NHL trade rumors from around the league, including speculation that the New Jersey Devils have interest in acquiring Canucks forward JT Miller. Plus, could Leafs forward Ondrej Kase, even though he's an RFA, could he actually be done in Toronto? Plus, it's a huge day in the Coyotes organization as they're waiting for a vote to take place on Tempe City Council on their new arena project. Plus, we have some other updates and signings from around the league. All that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of NHL news and rumors to talk about today. First up, let's recap Game 1 from the Eastern Conference Final last night, with the Rangers pulling off a 6-2 victory over the two-time Cup defending champion Tampa Bay Lightning. It was pretty well all Rangers most of the night, with Zibanejad hooking up with Kreider on a first goal just over a minute in. They scored again not too long later, and they were off and running. Tampa they weren't awful, but they certainly kind of looked like they did in the beginning of the Maple Leaf series, where it was, I guess they just looked to me like a little bit off, a little rusty, a little sleepy at times. I don't think Vasilevsky was all that bad, but, getting 6 goals by him, he certainly didn't have a great night, but I don't think he can be blamed for the bulk of that. A lot of that was the team in front of them. So the Rangers had a fantastic night. They had goals from Kreider. They saw some more goals as well from a guy like Frank Vetrano. Just an overall real solid team effort. The Rangers fans in MSG had a big chant of Igor is better going for a while, which was certainly entertaining to listen to, but at the same time, you don't want to poke the Lightning. They're obviously a team that's well experienced, back-to-back Cup champions, and Vasilevsky in the last going on 3 playoff seasons has not lost back-to-back games, so I suspect Tampa will be better in the next one, and certainly was a great start though for the Rangers. It goes to show there are some people that believe that the long layoffs are not good, and it really appeared evident last night with the Lightning. Of course, we have Game 2 tonight with the Oilers and the Avalanche. Mike Smith is expected to get the start for the Oilers, even though he was pulled in Game 1, and Darcy Kuemper is out for the Avalanche. We don't know the exact injury, but some people believe that it is vision-related, and the vision-related issues could be either from his eye injury previously acting up again, or there is some concern over a potential concussion too. So I don't know what the exact diagnosis is. That's just what's being discussed in the media. But either way, it's not good for Kuemper. They're going to be going with Pavel Francouz. So we'll see how he does tonight against Mike Smith. I do expect there still be lots of goals. I'm not sure we'll see quite as many as we did in Game 1, but time will tell here in a few hours' time. Of course, we also saw last night it was announced that the Mark Messier Leadership Award this year is going to LA Kings captain Anze Kopitar. Of course, he's a well-respected NHL captain and does lots of great things off the ice to grow the game of hockey as well, including leading several camps and lots of initiatives back in his home country of Slovenia. So certainly a great influence in the game of hockey on and off the ice, and certainly a great recipient there. I believe tonight we're getting the announcement for the Coach of the Year, the Jack Adams Award, and they'll slowly be rolled out that way since there's not going to be like an official ceremony or event like we've seen in the past. And we also have some signings today as well. The San Jose Sharks have a signing. They've signed Gannon Larocque, who was a 2021 4th-round pick. He's a right-shot defenseman from the WHL's Victoria Royals. He's 6'2", 200 pounds, and very offensively gifted. Put up 52 points in 63 games this past year, so he gets his ELC in San Jose. The Columbus Blue Jackets made a signing as well. They've signed Yuna Luoto, who is a Finnish winger, 6'3", 192 pounds, 24 years old. He's an undrafted prospect, so he's never been drafted by any NHL teams. Played most recently in Liga, and obviously he did previously play in the NHL, though he had a brief stint with the Winnipeg Jets where he appeared in 16 games back in the 1920 NHL season. And another note on Columbus as well, there was already speculation about it, but now confirmed. Columbus Blue Jacket defenseman or former defenseman Dean Kukin is indeed leaving the NHL and has signed a 5-year deal to play over in the Swiss League. So there was already talk, I think I mentioned it back a week or two ago, that he was expected to not re-sign in Columbus and that he would be likely heading back to Europe, but that's now been made official. There's also been some reports, but they're not confirmed. I believe it's more like a teaser report kind of, that Alexander Radulov of the Dallas Stars expected to head back and sign in the KHL with AK Bars. So we'll see if that gets confirmed. Radulov's certainly been on a bit of a decline and has not performed well at the NHL level, kind of slowly declining here in the last couple of years. So to me, that wouldn't be shocking at all. I'm not sure he'll get much of an NHL opportunity or offers around free agency anyway, but we'll see. That could be confirmed here as well. Now, of course, also a note on a player who's eligible for an extension, and this was surprising to some, not so much to others, but Carolina Hurricanes captain Jordan Staal, doing media availability after their locker cleanout, made some comments about the fact of his contract has 1 year left. He was asked about it, and he indicated that he essentially doesn't want to talk contract extension. He just wants to ride it out and go out with a bang, is what he said. So certainly wants to come back next year and try to win. Of course, he's completing the final year of a 10-year extension he signed, valued at $60 million. So, of course, that was before the NHL and the CBA was made adjustments on contract length. Of course, at one point, there was longer deals. We used to see 10, 12, 13-year contracts. More commonly, GMs were using that to kind of get the AAV down a bit to work for the salary cap as a bit of a loophole, but they were becoming too common, and the NHL clamped down on it and put the maximum 8-year thing in that we see today. 7 years, unless if you're changing teams, 8 if you remain with the same team. So, is Jordan Staal going to be done in Carolina after next year? Would he contemplate retirement? Because he also made a comment saying that this was not about getting to free agency and exploring that. So it was not so much that he wants to get out of Carolina as soon as possible or anything like that. Like, he's been there a long time, had a very successful run. He's the current team captain. Obviously disappointed that they lost in the playoffs and haven't been able to get over that hump. But it's really just a case that I kind of half wonder if he's maybe contemplating retirement, just wants to wait and see what happens. No guarantee. That's just my thoughts and opinions based on his comments, but certainly interesting to say that this might be his last year in a Hurricanes uniform. And another note with the Canes as well, we know Antti Ranta was hurt late in the series against the Rangers, and we did get confirmation that he has an MCL sprain and is expected to have a 6 to 8 week recovery. So essentially that's the same injury that Freddie Anderson was dealing with as well. And also another Carolina note, it was previously reported by a lot of people in the media that Ethan Bear was a healthy scratch, and I kind of thought he was as well, because they would show him often in the crowd. You would see him at the games in the suit, just there watching. But he apparently wasn't completely healthy. He is dealing with something, which I know one of the reporters asked him if it was more of like a long COVID recovery or one of those scenarios or something else. And apparently he came into media today on crutches because he did have a small procedure. He didn't really say what it was. He just said that he had something removed and it wasn't anything major, just a minor deal. So maybe he wasn't a healthy scratch after all, but we'll see what happens. He is an RFA, and you have to wonder how that's going to factor into their team plans, because they also announced that Jake Gardiner, who didn't play this year but has been on the Carolina Hurricanes books after signing there as a free agent a few years ago, is finally officially medically cleared and ready to return. So as of next year, he will be going into training camp and trying to make a comeback and play, because he is medically cleared to do so. So I have to wonder how the Hurricanes feel about that contract. I mean, I really wonder, do they really want him back? Because, I mean, they've been without him for all of this past year, a good chunk of the year before. He had back and hip surgery, so he's been through a lot. I wonder where he's been medically cleared. They might be able to do a buyout. I'm not sure if there's anything against it. I know you have to be healthy to be bought out. Like, you can't be bought out while you're injured and stuff. So I'm not sure what the regulations is there, but there might be another player they have to factor into their equation next year. And we'll see what that means for the future of the blue line if Jake Gardiner will be a part of it. Now, as I mentioned on the opening as well, it's a big day in Arizona regarding the Coyotes and their potential future home in Tempe. Today, June the 2nd, the Tempe City Council is holding a big meeting. The meeting's actually going on as we speak to possibly have a vote, which is expected here, probably be later into the evening before we hear anything. At least I think there will be a video on the channel either tonight or in the morning, depending on when things get wrapped up there, when the news breaks on the outcome. Obviously, a yes vote, though, doesn't mean they're getting the arena starting to be built or anything like that. A yes vote means that the city council agrees to negotiate with the bidder. So obviously they had an open bid process. These guys are the only ones who put a bid in. They can either choose to go to next steps to negotiate the deal with them, or they could reject it. Now there's lots of people that are speaking, just like we saw before with the Coyotes when they were trying to stay in Glendale. The receiving Coyotes players, including Clayton Keller, Nick Schmaltz, Christian Fisher, were all present to do their part to put in a good word. The Coyotes also agreed that there was, or actually offered to put in a clause in the agreement on a guarantee to not relocate for 30 years. That's a big one. So that's kind of a big deal. I mean, it's risky too, because even if they get the new arena, it's hard to predict that far out your financials, right? So, but there is something that they've offered to put in there. And I don't know too much more than that right now, but there's certainly lots of details being discussed, and we should have some news here soon. A no vote would obviously kind of kill that project. It doesn't automatically mean that they would just bail and leave. They do have some other options like plans B, C, and D that they already kind of have on the back burner for other potential places they could build and get a new spot. So I think there would be more that would be explored before they'd really consider relocation. And as they mentioned, there's no clause in their agreement with ASU that says if this Tempe arena deal gets axed, that they can't play there or anything like that. So they could stay and play at ASU and still be the Arizona Coyotes, even if there's no plans whatsoever. Let's say that for whatever reason that project gets completely killed and it's off the books, not happening. They could theoretically still play there during this agreement for the 3 years and try to figure out something else. So I'm not sure we're going to see any kind of quick action. I know there's people out there who would like to see the Coyotes moved yesterday. It's probably not happening. I know Gary Bettman is going to go to great lengths here to make sure that doesn't happen. He's been doing it the whole time he's been commissioner and had this team down there. So we'll see what happens, but we should have some hopefully much bigger news and more to talk about than that between the next several hours here. So stay tuned for an update on the channel. Now, as I mentioned, could Andre Kase of the Maple Leafs actually be done with the Maple Leafs? Overheard Elliotte Friedman talking on the Jeff Merrick radio show today. Of course, we talked a bit about some RFA rumors yesterday and some players that were, being discussed in the rumor mill as possibly not getting their RFA qualifying offer, which would then make them a UFA, and they'd basically be kind of forced to move on to a new team. We talked about guys like Dylan Strome, for example, being a prime candidate in that regard. We even talked about Ethan Bear in Carolina and a couple others. And now Friedman's also putting Andre Kase of the Maple Leafs in that same category. He says essentially, he signed in Toronto on a pretty cheap contract. He's, obviously only making, was it $1 million and a quarter, I think it is. It's a small amount. But he's arbitration eligible. So his qualifying offer is not the problem here because it's not a lot of money. But given how his performance, he's probably not going to agree to his qualifying offer. He's going to want more money. And the thought is that because teams, when they go through arbitration, they are allowed to walk away from certain awards. And this year, the cutoff is just under $4 million. So if a player is awarded more than that, the team can be like, yeah, no, that's too rich for us. No thanks. And the player becomes a UFA. They're only allowed to do that, I think it's every couple of years. And it's not something we really rarely ever see. It's not common. So I don't expect that to happen. But some of these players, teams are concerned it could go down that road. So, where he is arbitration eligible, Elliotte was saying that he could be, looking to get maybe $3.75, $4 million in that range. And it might be a situation where the Leafs, they like the player, but I don't know if they can like him enough to choke down that money because they're already tight as it is. So we've talked a lot about other players that could be on the move due to the cap crunch. And Kase is another potential cap victim in that case. He also had an Instagram post that kind of basically made it sound in a way like he was saying, at least some people interpreted, that he was saying goodbye to Toronto, but it was kind of like a thank you. And obviously you don't typically see that unless they're likely moving to another team or something like that. I mean, sometimes you see it as just a thank you for a good season and whatever, but I don't know anyways, right? So it's all speculation, but Elliott was mentioning that he could be in that category. So don't be shocked if Ondrej Kase is not qualified by the Leafs, and he might be another member of their team that could be looking for a new contract elsewhere in the offseason. Or the other possibility here too is that they could end up, if they don't qualify him, he becomes a UFA, and then he loses those arbitration rights. And, I guess it doesn't mean he's completely gone from Toronto, but, depending on what other teams are willing to offer, he could still re-sign there. And of course, but they would have a different process, right? So it could be a bargaining tool that they use in some cases. We've seen cases, where before where like a player's not qualified, but then they still sign there. And they just sign for less money. So we'll see. Now, could the Vancouver Canucks forward JT Miller find himself on the move this offseason? He's a player that's widely expected to be traded. And could the New Jersey Devils be like a kind of like an under-the-radar stealth team that we never really talked about before, be a good landing spot for him that's expected? Now, I overheard some more radio conversations here between Irfan Gaffar and Satir Shah on Sportsnet 650 in Vancouver, talking about the Miller situation, talking Canucks hockey, and Irfan brings up the New Jersey Devils as being an interested team that, based on information he has, that he believes they could be a stealth team to be getting involved. Now, of course, there's no guarantees based on what he's saying that the number 2 overall pick of the 2022 draft would be involved, although we have heard from numerous sources before that the Devils are open to trading that pick. Now, it's expected that a guy like Miller would bring back a pretty good haul, but, giving a high value of a piece like a number 2 pick, it would certainly reduce what else they'd have to add with it to make it happen. They may not have to add much of anything. It's a pretty valuable draft pick. So, and it doesn't mean that would be the case. But if you look at the Devils roster, what else do they have that we know they might be willing to part with? Well, there's not a lot, but for example, we know Pavel Zacha is a player that they appear open to be trading. Obviously, somebody who they're not convinced fits in their system any longer, former first-round pick. I don't know that the Canucks would be interested there or where they'd see him. If anything, he's probably a middle 6 forward, but I don't know if they really need that kind of player per se. Of course, there's a number 2 pick. Would they be interested in a defenseman, maybe like a Damon Severson or something? Maybe, but if they get Severson, they'd have to move Myers or somebody. That would get complicated. So as much as this deal does make sense, the argument here is that obviously the Devils are a team that's expected to make some moves, to be on the rise, and that a guy like Miller could be the leader to help all these young guys learn how to be pros and kind of just help them take the next steps here and kind of push them up a notch. And he could do that. He'd be really great for a lot of these young players to be around. And they have some great pieces there. You've got Jack Hughes. You've got Nico Hischier. You got Dawson Mercer. You got Sharangovich. And there's a number of other pieces in the system. Alexander Holtz is on the way as well. And there's more coming. And they have some good young defenders too. They signed Dougie Hamilton. They need to figure out a goaltender. But it does make sense that Miller could be an option. But when it comes to trading that number 2 overall pick, the only thing I'll caution everybody is I'm not saying it won't happen, but it's rare. In the last decade, we haven't seen a top 5 pick be traded. Any picks that have been traded, and like higher ones, have all been below that. So it's not a common thing that you see. So as much as they say they're open to it, and I do believe them at their word on that, it's going to take a pretty special package to have them give that up. I mean, to give up a guy, like a Slafkovsky or a Logan Cooley, I don't know. Hard to say what they can do in that regard. But even if they do make a push to acquire Miller, I don't think it's going to be that pick that's involved. I can see them maybe offering a first-round pick maybe next year and another piece or two to add with it. So at least that's my take, but we'll see what happens. But do you see JT Miller being a fit in New Jersey, and what kind of package would you offer them if you're Tom Fitzgerald trying to make that acquisition? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.